Divine spit legal warning. The horror stories you are about to hear, though written by the devil in the devil's own book, contain evils created by God himself. Chapter 1. God's Unnecessary Child. There was a child spat out by God. Not literal spit, of course. This is a metaphor, dear listener, for those who struggle with figurative language. Where was I? Right. There was a child spat out by God, a byproduct of creation, born on the third day while God was busy saying, "Let there be light," and whispering secrets into Gabriel's ear. Half angel, half mistake. One wing crooked, one eye blue, the other brown. A freak crawling through the halls of heaven. The angels called him useless. I call him little disgusting godling. His name was never recorded in any book, neither angel nor demon. A being with no place to belong, much like many of the artists you see among humans. The other possibility was becoming a psychopath. He did that too. Useless became a psychotic artist, and like everyone God despised, he was cast down to earth. The pioneer of the grotesque, Useless lived for centuries under countless identities, roaming every corner of the world. He seeded women, fathered bastards. Some of those bastards unknowingly married their own blood, and his twisted lineage trickled down through time, reaching what you call the present day. Who knows? Maybe one of you listening to this story is his descendant. Maybe it's you. Not that I care. The story I've chosen for you from this long, wretched existence takes place in the 1990s. 1997. Detroit Useless threw a party in an abandoned brewery. A night of excess in the middle of nowhere. Human disguise, a complete farce. Gelled back hair, a polka dot jacket, every ounce of the era's filth draped on him. After a sharp inhale of coke from the table, the screams began. Screams that would never reach another soul, buried in the desolation of the factory walls. When the screaming stopped, the building went up in flames. By the time the firefighters arrived, everyone was dead. Another masterpiece complete. Only one survived, just Ellie. Her left leg had melted. Her hair had turned into pink sea moss. Useless looked at her and said, "Congratulations. You're a work of art now, my magnum opus." Chapter 2. The Broken Windows Bargain. Useless took the sole survivor of the party back to his cursed palace. Not a single servant worked there. After all, finding someone lowly enough to serve the lowest creature of that realm was impossible. The only beings lower than him were humans, but as you can guess, no human ever lasted long in his service. His plan? Turn the surviving woman into his servant. He helped her just enough to keep her alive. Not that he thought this amputee would last long either, but love twists every story. Useless fell for Ellie, a one-legged, disfigured woman with moss for hair. The more he looked at her, the more he saw himself. When Ellie came to, she tried to make sense of where she was, who she was with, and what was happening. And in that moment, the kind of peak every story needs, Ellie made a deal with Useless. Instead of loving him, she treated him like some kind of wish-granting genie. And though it shattered his monstrous little heart, Useless didn't refuse his one and only love. What did Ellie want? Cure my mother's cancer. And what would she give in return? The rest of my leg. Jealousy and vengeance ignited in Useless's broken heart. Why? Because he envied Ellie's love for her mother. The fact that she was willing to part with what he considered his masterpiece, her amputated leg, for her mother's sake, filled him with unbearable rage. Useless laughed. Come on, be a little more creative. I would have taken your soul. But honestly, it's rotten and worthless. But don't worry, there is something I can take from you. Give me your pink hair. Ellie hesitated. You want the roots? She asked. No. Useless simply replied. Ellie, relieved by the price, accepted without hesitation. She cut her hair. The roots remained. Useless ate the hair, crunchy like Cheetos. The next day, Ellie's mother was cured. Of course, there were some side effects. Mushrooms bloomed from her tongue. Her eyes flipped inside out. But who cares? Health is what matters, right? Chapter 3. The Anatomy of Disgust. Useless's obsessive love twisted him into a depraved, dangerous, psychotic stalker. He followed Ellie everywhere. He left dead bugs under her pillow. He scrawled, "I love you," on her mirrors using his own feces. One night, Ellie woke up to find Useless sitting at the foot of her bed, grinning at her. In his hands, a jar. Inside the jar, her mother's head, fungus-coated tongue and all. Surprise, he chirped. Our mother lives with me now. Would you like to join us, Ellie? Ellie bolted, screaming. As she ran through the streets, every time Useless's laughter echoed, a street lamp burst. Finally, she found refuge in a church. The priest took one look at her and backed away. To his human eyes, she looked like a demon, a stroke of Useless's brilliant manipulation. But Ellie's mind was fixated on one thing. Just before she fled, she could have sworn she saw her mother's head move inside the jar. A trick of the darkness? A hallucination? She didn't know. She couldn't be sure. But what if it wasn't? A wave of regret crushed her. She had left her mother's head behind, left it with that monster. Chapter 4. The Devil's Confession. This is where I come in. Yes, me. The one writing these words. I come from a time before writing, before technology, from a realm where no human should ever hear my voice. Yet here I am, the first witness to humanity's most tragic stories. I found Ellie's trembling body on the church floor. And let's get one thing straight. Whoever said the devil can't enter a church, fuck that. I know Useless. He's an artist, a true talent. But he broke the rules. Even God doesn't cheat in deals. He stole the girl's hair, turned a cancer-ridden woman into a headless, fungus-tongued freak. Fine, whatever. But keeping that head alive? Unforgivable. If her forehead itched, how would she scratch it? A bodiless, old, mushroom-mouthed wretch suffering an eternal irritation. The thought alone makes my blood boil. I was going to make Useless regret not killing her properly. I reached down to Ellie and grinned. Hey, girl, I got a new deal for you. Deal or no deal. Ellie saw me as a black woman, fierce, determined, and my ass in braids. Fucking flawless, bitch. Chapter 5. The End of Divine Flaw. We found Useless in an IKEA store. He was passed out in the bedroom section, wearing a pair of pajamas that said, "World's Shittiest Dad." Ellie sat beside him and whispered, "The end of eternity, my love." Then she opened her mouth. Her mother's mushroom-tongued head shot out and swallowed Useless whole. In the most beautiful corner of hell, there stands a statue, more like a memorial tombstone. Ellie, with her pink hair, holds a jar containing her mother's severed head. Below it, the epitaph reads, "Here lies God's useless bastard." The so-called art pieces Useless created under countless fake names are still displayed in galleries all over the world. Every now and then, news breaks about a newly discovered masterpiece. But let me tell you, something's off about that. I know some of you are still wondering, but what happened to Ellie? I already told you. But for those who weren't paying attention, let me spell it out again. Ellie, the girl who killed the least precious of God's sons, and her mother became the stone statue standing over their tomb in the most beautiful part of hell. And they remained there forever and ever, happily ever after. The end.